Pak Muradinya belum. Ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony of international webinar, Youth and Spiritual Values Under the Light of the Quran, lesson from Said Nursi's work, Tuesday, 15th of December 2020, is started. We would like to invite everyone to please stand up to join us in the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Hadirin dimohon untuk berdiri. All the participants is allowed to sit down. Seluruh peserta dipersilakan untuk duduk kembali. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Rector of UIN Antasari Banjarmasin, Profesor Dr. Mujiburrahman M.A., Honorable Speaker, Profesor Dr. Ismail Latif Hacınebioğlu, Professor from University of Istanbul, and Dr. Osman Yapar from Dhofar University of Oman. Chairman of the Executive Board of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Dr. Said Yüce, Vice Rector of Student Affairs and Partnership UIN Antasari Banjarmasin, Dr. Nida Mufidah, M.Pd, distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to International Webinar, Youth and Spiritual Values Under the Light of the Quran, lesson from Said Nursi's work, hosted by Antasari State Islamic University, Banjarmasin, in partnership with Yayasan Semesta Jakarta and Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. On behalf of the hosts, we extend our greatest appreciation to each and every one of you for being able to join this wonderful webinar. Preceding our agenda this morning, we would like to invite Muhammad Rizkon, student of Islamic education, the third winner of the International Musabaqah Tilawatil Quran in Istanbul, Turkey, to recite the Holy Quran.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim.
Kedengaran, Pak?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا كبيرا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا وأن الذين لا يؤمنون بالآخرة أعتدنا لهم عذابا أليما ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه الخير وكان الإنسان عجولا ويدعو الإنسان بالشر دعاءه بالخير وكان الإنسان عجولا صدق الله العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
May Allah bless us. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we will have our welcome remark from Vice Rector of Student Affairs and Partnership of UIN Antasari Banjarmasin. Please welcome Dr. Nida Mufidah, M.Pd.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nida Mufidah. It is a really great pleasure to welcome all of you. And then, of course, this is really big thanks to each and everyone who are participants here for joining our program. I would like to extend my deep gratitude, my great honor, and very big welcome to the presenters, Professor Dr. Mujiburrahman, M.A., Rector of State Islamic University Antasari Banjarmasin, and then also Dr. Yüce, Chairman of the Executive Board Istanbul for Science and Culture, Professor Dr. Ismail Latif, Hacınebioğlu, University of Istanbul, and then also the speaker for Dr. Osman Yapar from Dhofar University, Oman. Well, everyone, this is really very good situation for today. This is actually international webinar, which is held by our cooperation among Yayasan Semesta Jakarta, Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, and then also State Islamic University, Banjarmasin, UIN Antasari Banjarmasin. With the topic today, Youth and Spiritual Values under the Light of Quran. Lesson from Syed Nursi's work. Well, everyone, when we talk about Syed Nursi's, a lot of things that we would like to get from this discussion. And then, of course, hope that it will be a great idea and then also great knowledge that you would like to get from this discussion. As we know that Syed Nursi was a really very prominent teacher, Muslim, from Turkey, and then also as the leader of the movement, which is he wanted at the time to see the unity of Muslim worldwide. He struggled in his country since the beginning of the 20th century, and as we know that Syed Nursi thought that Muslims should always be close to the Quran. He said that the universe must also be read as the holy book. Its verses can be studied by humans, all of us as Islamic Muslim. Of course, through growing people to get research and develop science, combining Quranic verses and Quranic verses. Well, everybody that when the discussion of this topic, of course, I would like to say really thank you very much for also all of the team of this organization, and then also mainly for Mr. Hasbi from the Yayasan Semesta Jakarta, and then also all of the team, which is really very hard worker to get this link. And then of course we have to say thank you very much. Well, everybody, Al-Quran as a guide to human life, Al-Quran as a guidance for mankind. Inside are the explanation of the instruction and depending between right and of course falsehood. As the principles of source of Islamic teaching, Al-Quran, which is the principal source of Islamic teaching first, Inside, there are proofs that are needed by humans to cultivate the natural universe. And well, everyone, in fact, the principal source of not only is meant to be happy in the world, but also happy in the afterlife by connecting and living also, and then also how to do in the best way for our life based on our Quran. Well, I think I will not say a lot of things here because we have 4 experts here, 3 experts here, and then of course the discussion would be really interesting, and then hope that all of you will be active in this virtual international webinar. And thank you very much. Hope this program will be great and then successful for the next. And then of course I would like to invite our rector for delivering keynote speech, and then of course opening this international webinar formally. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ibu Nida, for the welcome remark. The next speech, allow me to welcome the Chairman, the Executive Board of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. Please welcome Dr. Said Yüce.
Teşekkür ederim. Hepinize hasbikardeş tercüme edecek herhalde. İstanbul'dan, Türkiye'den hepinize binler selam. Hasbi duyuyor musun?
Oke. Beliau menyampaikan salam dari Istanbul, menyampaikan salam untuk semua hadirin yang ada di sini.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Esselatu vesselamu ala Resulina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve sahbihi ecmain. Sizlerle aslında bu korona hastalığı olmasa yüz yüze görüşmek isterdik. Sizin ülkenizi daha önce birkaç kez ziyaret ettim. İnşallah sizin üniversitenize, okulunuza gelmemiştik ama inşallah bu hastalık kalkarsa bizzat gelmek isterim. Sizleri de İstanbul'da ağırlamak isteriz inşallah daha ileriki zamanlarda.
Beliau katakan beliau sudah kunjungan ke Indonesia beberapa kali. Andai saja pandemi ini tidak ada, saya sebenarnya mengharap bisa bertatap muka ya di Banjarmasin. Mudah-mudahan selama masa pandemi berakhir bisa kami datang ke Banjarmasin dan mengunjungi UIN Banjarmasin, dan kami juga mengundang ya Bapak Ibu dari UIN Banjarmasin ke İstanbul.
Değerli rektörümüz Profesör Mujiburrahman ve rektör yardımcısı Nida, Mufidah hanımefendilere ve bütün öğretim üyelerine, bu webinarı düzenleyen yöneticilere ve tüm öğrencilere sevgilerimi, saygılarımı sunuyorum.
Beliau menyampaikan salam dan ucapan terima kasih kepada Bapak Rektor Profesor Dr. Mujiburrahman dan Wakil Rektor Dr. Nida dan para panitia, dosen dan para mahasiswa yang terlibat dalam acara webinar ini.
Güzel bir konu başlığı seçmişsiniz. Aslında bütün dünyanın gençliğinin problemleri, sadece Müslüman gençlik değil. Ben bu yıl başında 4-5 ülke ziyaret etmiştim İslam ülkelerinden. Tunus, Katar, Kuveyt, Suudi Arabistan. Bizim İstanbul'da vakfımızı da ziyarete Endonezya, Malezya'dan, Sudan'dan yine öğretim üyeleri, rektörler gelmişlerdi. Tüm görüşmelerimizde aslında problemin aynı olduğunu, bütün gençlik için aranan, beklenen şeylerin aynı olduğunu ve bu problemlere ortak çözümler geliştirmek için görüş teatilerinde bulunmuştuk o zaman.
Dan tema yang diusung atau yang dipilih itu sangatlah bagus terkait dengan generasi muda. Ini persoalan yang dihadapi tidak hanya umat Islam tapi seluruh umat manusia, persoalan generasi muda ini. Dan di awal tahun saya sudah kunjungan ke beberapa negara Arab ya. seperti Qatar, Saudi Arabia dan beberapa negara. Itu persoalan yang sama yang kami bincangkan dengan para ahli ya, dan ada juga tamu-tamu datang dari Malaysia, dari Indonesia dan dari negara lain di yayasan kami. Ketika kami berbincang-bincang atau bertukar pikiran, ya semuanya membahas persoalan yang sama menghadapi bagaimana masa depan generasi muda ini.
Ben bu açılış konuşmasında çok fazla tabii konuşmayacağım. İnşallah ileriki zamanlarda daha geniş konuyu ele alacağımız zeminler olur. Şu anda söylemek istediğim, Türkiye'de biliyorsunuz Bediüzzaman Said Nursi isimli büyük bir İslam alimi var. Ve Kur'an'ın bu asra bakan önemli bir tefsiri Risale-i Nur'ları telif etmiş. Onun reçetelerinden birkaç cümle söylemek istiyorum.
Saya tidak akan memperpanjang sambutan saya. Mudah-mudahan ada kesempatan lain nanti bisa kita bincang-bincang lagi. Seperti Anda tahu, kalian tahu bahwa ada seorang ulama besar dari Turki, Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, dan beliau memiliki karya bernama atau berjudul Risalah Nur. Saya ingin mengutip beberapa bagian dari Risalah Nur itu.
Aslında Nursi sadece gençlerin değil, bütün insanların karşısında duran çok önemli bir davadan bahsediyor. O da ebedi hayatı kazanmak ya da kaybetmek davası. Herkesin başına açılmış. Bunu söylüyor.
Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi menyampaikan bahwa tidak hanya generasi muda, tapi semua umat manusia menghadapi sebuah persoalan besar. Kata Said Nursi, persoalan itu adalah apakah akan mendapatkan kebahagiaan abadi di akhirat atau tidak.
O da şu, aslında her insanın başına açılmış bu önemli dava. Bir de çok önemli bir gerçek, hakikat var. O da ölüm gerçeği. Yani her insan ölümle karşı karşıya gelecek.
Dan ada juga sebuah keniscayaan yang dihadapi umat manusia adalah hakikat kematian.
Bu karşılaştığı önemli hakikat karşısında hem dünyasını hem dünyadan sonraki ebedi hayatını kurtaracak çok önemli bir formülden söz ediyor, bahsediyor.
Dan beliau menyampaikan sebuah formula atau sebuah solusi yang bisa menyelamatkan kebahagiaan manusia baik di dunia maupun di akhirat.
Hiçbir siyasetçinin, sosyoloğun, psikoloğun, eğitimcinin, felsefecinin çözemediği, gerçekten cevabını bulamadığı bu probleme çok kısa ve öz bir cevap veriyor.
Dan Imam Bediüzzaman Said Nursi menjawab persoalan yang dihadapi generasi muda ini sebetulnya ya persoalannya yang tidak bisa dipecahkan oleh para sosiolog, filsuf dan kalangan yang lainnya.
O da şu, kişinin hakiki manada, gerçek manada bir imanı kazanması ve istikametli bir hayat yaşamasının hem dünya hayatını hem de ebedi hayatını kurtaracağını ve bu hayatı ve ebedi hayatı sürur içerisinde, sevinç içerisinde geçireceği güzel bir sonuçla karşılaşacağını, bunun da yegane çaresinin hakiki bir imanı elde etmek olduğunu söylüyor.
Dan persoalan yang dihadapi
günahlardan çekinmekle bunu muhafaza edebileceğini söylüyor. Evet.
Persoalan yang dihadapi generasi muda itu dapat dipecahkan dengan solusi dari Said Nursi adalah menguatkan iman, memperkokoh keimanan. Dengan memperkokoh keimanan itu dan hidupnya juga lurus di dunia, maksudnya menghindari perbuatan dosa, insyaallah akan bahagia baik di dunia maupun di akhirat.
Çünkü dünyevi kanunlar, hapishaneler, polis, jandarma gücü, mahkemeler, kameralar, mobeseler, güvenlik tedbirleri mesela sosyal düzeni, barışı, asayişi sağlamaya yetmiyor. Dünyada suçlar gittikçe artıyor azalacağına. Bunun yegane çaresinin Nursi kalbe yerleştirilen hakiki bir imanla mümkün olacağını söylüyor. Dolayısıyla hem dünya hayatı daha yaşanabilir, mutlu bir halde oluyor. Hem de o istikametli hayatı yaşadığından dolayı ebedi hayatını da kurtarıyor insan. Ve bunu hiçbir dünyevi düzen, kanun ya da polis gücü, güvenlik gücü sağlayamıyor.
Untuk mencapai keamanan sosial, stabilitas sosial, kekuatan yang ada, kekuatan yang memiliki aparat, kepolisian, pengadilan, keberadaan CCTV, ya kamera dan sebagainya itu tidak bisa mengatur manusia dengan baik ya. Pasti masih ada aja kejahatan, kriminalitas dan sebagainya. Yang bisa mencegahnya semuanya itu ya dengan iman yang yang kokoh yang terdapat dalam iman hati seseorang.
Ve bunu yapan her türlü şiddetten ve olumsuz davranıştan, yani bu imanı kazanan her türlü şiddetten ve olumsuz davranıştan uzak duruyor. Ben bu konuda zaman almasın diye kendim okumayacağım. Hasbi Bey Bediüzzaman'ın bir iki küçük kısa paragrafı var eserinden, orayı okusun, sonra birkaç cümleyle kapatacağım inşallah.
Dan ada beberapa kutipan, saya tidak akan baca bahasa Turkinya, akan dibacakan bahasa Indonesia secara langsung. Setelah saya baca beberapa kutipan, setelah itu beliau menyampaikan 1-2 kalimat lagi akan selesai sambutannya. Di dalam buku Tuntunan Generasi Muda, ada buku Tuntunan Generasi Muda, Imam Bediüzzaman Said itu menyampaikan, selama ajal terbungkus oleh tirai gaib dan kematian bisa datang setiap waktu tanpa pandang bulu apakah orang muda atau orang tua, maka manusia yang lemah yang melihat kondisi tersebut setiap waktu akan mencari sesuatu yang dapat menyelamatkannya dari kebinasaan sekaligus mengubah pintu kubur dari kondisi gelap menjadi bercahaya yang terbuka menuju alam yang kekal dan taman yang menyenangkan di alam cahaya dan kebahagiaan abadi. Tentu saja hal ini merupakan persoalan terbesar bagi manusia. Bahkan ia lebih agung dan lebih besar dibanding seluruh dunia ini. Di halaman 12 juga, wahai orang yang diuji dengan perhiasan dan kenikmatan kehidupan dunia, wahai yang mencurahkan seluruh potensinya untuk menjamin kehidupan saat ini dan masa depan dengan penuh kerisauan, wahai orang yang malang, jika kalian ingin menikmati kelezatan dunia dan merasakan kebahagiaannya, maka cukupkan dirimu dengan kenikmatan yang ada dalam wilayah yang disyariatkan. Kenikmatan tersebut sudah sangat cukup untuk memenuhi keinginanmu. Seperti yang telah dijelaskan di atas, kalian dapat memahami bahwa setiap kenikmatan yang berada di luar koridor syariah hanya berisi ribuan penderitaan. Sebab jika berbagai peristiwa masa depan yang akan terjadi 50 tahun kemudian, misalnya, dapat disaksikan sebagaimana berbagai peristiwa masa lalu, tentu orang-orang yang lalai dan bodoh itu akan meratapi apa yang mereka tertawakan saat ini. Karenanya, siapa yang ingin selalu bahagia dan gembira di dunia dan akhirat, ia harus mematuhi pendidikan Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam yang berada dalam koridor keimanan. Satu kalimat pendek lagi. Satu pesan lagi dari Said Nursi, jika engkau ingin hidup bahagia, maka nyalakan hidupmu dengan iman, hiasilah ia dengan melaksanakan kewajiban, dan jagalah ia dengan menjauhi kemaksiatan.
Evet, bu konuda son olarak size şunu da söylemek isterim. 3 senede bir yaptığımız İstanbul İlim ve Kültür Vakfı olarak uluslararası sempozyumlar oluyordu. International sempozyumlar. Bu sene yapacaktık ama pandemiden dolayı erteledik. 2021'in Ekim ayına, Oktober'da inşallah İstanbul'da düzenleyeceğiz. O zamana bu hastalık da kalkmış olur. Vicahen inşallah yaparız. Onun konusu da, konu başlığı iman, sosyal hayatı nasıl düzenliyor? Yani sosyal barışın, düzenin sağlanmasında imanın rolü ana başlığıyla 3 gün sürecek bir sempozyum. Yaklaşık 50 ülkeden 300'e yakın akademisyen katılacak. İnşallah vicahen yapabiliriz. Olmazsa webinar tarzında yapacağız. Sizleri de sempozyuma tebliğ hazırlamaya, katılmaya buradan bu vesileyle davet ediyorum. Onun duyurularını inşallah Hasbi Bey vasıtasıyla sizlere göndereceğim. Tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Allah'a emanet olun. Sağ olun, var olun.
Terakhir beliau menyampaikan bahwa Istanbul Foundation mengadakan simposium internasional mengenai pemikiran Said Nursi setiap 3 tahun sekali. Sebetulnya tahun 2020 telah direncanakan simposium internasional, tapi karena keadaan pandemi ditunda 2021. Pada bulan Oktober insyaallah akan diadakan simposium internasional jika memungkinkan kondisinya, dengan tema sebenarnya mirip, ya, iman, bagaimana fungsi iman dalam mencapai perdamaian dan keamanan sosial, gitu ya. Temanya kami mengharapkan tulisan-tulisan juga dari para dosen dari UIN Banjarmasin. Info berikutnya kami akan menyampaikan melalui saudara Hasbi. Terima kasih kami ucapkan atas perhatiannya. Semoga selalu sehat.
Shukran jazilan. Thank you very much.
Syukran.
Syukran.
Ya. Ya, sudah selesai. Terima kasih. Ya.
Thank you, Mr. Said, for the greeting. Distinguished guests and participants, it is our honor to have the Rector of UIN Antasari Banjarmasin to deliver the keynote speech and officially open this international webinar. Please be invited, the Honorable Professor Dr. Mujiburrahman, M.A.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah ala ni'amihi allati la tuhsa. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin al-Mustafa wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ahli tuqa wal wafa. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Amma ba'd. Our distinguished guest, Honorable Chairman of the Executive Board of Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, Dr. Said Yüce, Honorable speakers, Professor Dr. Ismail Latif, Hacınebioğlu from the University of Istanbul, and Dr. Osman Yapar from Dhofar University, Oman. All the teaching staff and students from our university, and ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy and glad that today we can have an international webinar on Muslim youth under the light of the Quran, lessons from the works of Said Nursi. And I think this is a very good start for our cooperation between Antasari State Islamic University and the Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. We are certainly happy to have cooperation on this kind of seminar or workshop and any other academic activities like research and publications. And hopefully some of us can also participate in the international seminar on Nursi that your foundation is going to have. And I hope this meeting also is the start of our cooperation that we are going to sign on the memorandum of understanding that we are already preparing, and we will send it to you for consideration, and then we hope we can sign the MOU together as a basis for our future cooperation. And ladies and gentlemen, I must be honest that I have a very limited knowledge of Said Nursi. And I have to thank Bapak Hasbi, who sent me this book about Tuntunan Generasi Muda, a guide for young generation or for the youth. And this morning I tried to extract some quote or quotation from this very interesting book, and I will present it today to you through our screen. I hope it is clear, yeah? So my short presentation will be Said Nursi's Guide for the Youth. Maybe some of us already know who is Said Nursi, who Said Nursi is. So just a biography, as I read it from the book. He was born in 1877 in Nursi of East Anatolia and died in Urfa in 1960. And he was, according to a historical report, a very smart and pious man. He studied Islamic literature and also general sciences like chemistry, physics, geology, etc. Also mathematics. And he is very eager to combine Islamic knowledge and modern sciences together, not to separate between the two. And his life, he was in jail several times, but he always survived. He could go out of jail and then teach students, and also wrote a lot of treatises and books on Islamic teachings. So some of the books have been translated into several languages, including into Indonesian. So I received like 4 of the books, like this one, Nasihat Spiritual, and Iman Kunci Kesempurnaan. And the biggest one is Al-Lama'at, and which is also sent by Hasbi. Thank you very much for sending me these books. And it is very interesting books. And after having read the books, I found that he is a kind of Sufi master, I think. Maybe like Jalaluddin Rumi somehow. One of the treatises he wrote is called Murshidus Shabab. So Murshidus Shabab, or Guide for the Youth, is one part of the Risalat An-Nur. It's a treatise on light, or a treatise on light. You can say that he used Sufi terminology, light, nur, and also lama'at, flashes, these kind of symbols of youth, or symbol of God, because God is the light of the earth and the whole earth and heavens. Allahu nur samawati wal ard. So he uses this kind of terminologies, which is quite familiar in Sufi teachings. The contents of the treatise are admonition and advices for the young Muslims based on Islamic teaching and also his personal experiences. So this is what I think very interesting of this book, because he doesn't only give advices and admonition for the youth, but he also talked about his own personal experiences, which is very interesting. So I found at least three kind of education advices in this book. First, talk about youth, a short but decisive age. And second, lesson from the old people. And the last one, example from his own life. If you look at the book, the background of the book, he said that one day, a number of strong and smart teenagers came to me. They asked me for advices and admonitions to prevent them from evils caused by the needs and lust impulses of youth age. So I gave them my advices. This is the background. So he wrote the book. It's not just writing a book, but it is a response to questions and needs of several teenagers who came to him. So this is a very interesting, I think, background. And then he wrote in the book, one of the important points of the youth is that it is short but decisive. He said, this is a quotation from the book. I tried to translate it from Indonesian. I'm not sure whether it is a good translation, but at least it can be understood. He said, remember, the youth will certainly pass. Young age will certainly pass. If you cannot control yourself within the limits of the Sharia, then your youth will be gone and you will get misery and suffering. But if you use your youth to get honor, respect, and obedience to God, then that age will always be awakened as a vehicle to attain everlasting youth in the paradise. So the idea of youth as an everlasting youth in paradise is I think, is very interesting. So he's talking about the future, the life after death, or in the hereafter, when somebody enter the paradise. And in paradise, nobody will become old. Everybody is young. It is said according to the prophetic tradition, according to hadith. And he said, this is also read by Pak Hasbi in Indonesian language. He said, if you want to live happily, then light up your life with faith. Light up your life with iman. Yeah? Decorate it by carrying out obligation and keep it from immorality. So this is, I think, is a very important teaching, that happiness is totally depending on our good character. It's not depending on our wealth. It's not depending on our position, our popularity, but it depends on our good character and on our faith. So for Muslims, especially for young Muslims, they have to realize that happiness is not something that most people think about it today. Happiness is very spiritual, according to Said Nursi. On the other hand, Said Nursi in this book also talk about a number of young people who suffer from illness, who were sick, and then they came to Said Nursi and asked him for dua, for prayer. And he said, I cannot change you. I'm not a doctor, but I can advise you. And he said, suffering from illness or youth can be a good thing when it helps him or her to be patient and wise. So in this case, your sickness is health for you. While for those who waste their health in doing bad things, their health is actually their sickness. So here, I think Syed Nursi is talking about the real health and the real sickness. So if our spiritual life, if our character is good, then we are actually in good health, even though our body is attacked by illness. On the other hand, if we are in our body, we are now well, not sick, but our spirituality, our iman, our faith, and our character are not good, then we are actually sick. So I think this is a very nice idea about health and illness, and it is very deep advice and admonition for us, and especially for young generations. And then he said, if you want to understand how youth end up being evacuated to hospitals, prison, or even exiles because of the lust and deceits they indulge in, or to places of entertainment and liquor due to mental distress, then just ask some hospitals, prison, and even graves. So here he tried to educate the young generation to prove what he has said. If they want to prove the truth that only good people, only people who can use the time of young age to do good things, that to become happy people, then go to hospital, go to prisons, and ask people there why they become hospitalized, why they become personalized, why they become put in jail. And then the young generation will know the real reasons behind their suffering. So this is, I think, also a very interesting statement and quotation from Nursi. And now he talked about the lesson from the old. So the younger generation should learn something from the old. You can ask, he said, those who are old and who are sick. They represent the majority of people. And if you ask them, they will say, I deeply regret the past. We have wasted youth in useless affairs. Therefore, be careful not to repeat our history. Don't ever follow our steps. They face years of sorrow and war in this world, tormented in the realm of barzakh and hell and the hereafter, only for forbidden pleasure, which are no more than 5 or 10 years of youth. So the young age or the youth is only around 5 or 10 years. But if somebody doesn't use it for good things, but for bad things, then they will regret forever until they die. So I think this is a very interesting statement and quotation that he asked the younger generation to learn the old people, to learn from their parents or their grandparents or other people who are older than him. And this is also interesting. The Arabic, I forgot the Arabic word for this. He said that the best youth is the one who resembles the old, and the worst of all people is the one who resembles the youth. It is called a hadith, yeah. And this is the Arabic one. Khairu shababikum man tashabbaha bikuhulikum. wa syarru kuhulikum man tashabbaha bishababikum. And Said Nursi said, I have heard about prophetic tradition. It means that the best of youth is the one who doesn't forget God. And like old people, he or she always remembers death and prepare. On the other hand, the worst of old people is the one who forgets God and follows the lust of youth. In Bahasa Indonesia, we have this kind of proverb, tua-tua keladi, makin tua makin jadi. This is the worst of people. And finally, he put some of his experiences, example of his life. And I just take two examples that he wrote in this book. One is the first paragraph of this PowerPoint. He said, during the 75 years that I have lived, with the thousands of experiences that I have had throughout my life, and with the events that have happened to me, I am fully aware that true pleasure, joy without pain, joy that is not accompanied by sorrow, and perfect happiness in life lies only in faith and its territory. So in Iman. And he also said, this is a very interesting story to me. He used to stay in the house of a governor, Omar Pasha, who had 3 daughters. He stayed in the house for 2 years, but he could not recognize their faces because he never put his eyes on them. So this is probably the opposite of us. Yeah, if you go to beach and people there are using, bikini, wearing bikini, and maybe most of us will put our eyes on them. And so this is my closing remark about Said Nursi's work on his admonition for the youth. So Said Nursi's advices and admonition for the youth is full of wisdom and inspiration. They are also based on his rich experiences. He put himself as an example of a man who could use his youth in doing good things, not to succumb in the evils of the carnal school. Nursi's message contains perennial wisdoms in the sense that it is useful for youth of any time of history. So I think this is what I can find from this Risala, and maybe there are many other things that can be learned from this very interesting work from Said Nursi. Finally, I would like to thanks all the organizing committee, and especially our college from Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture, and also Yayasan Nur Semesta from Jakarta, who organized this international webinar. And I hope that we will extend our cooperation in the future. So, in the hope of the blessing from God, let us open this webinar by saying together, Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Bapak Mujib, for delivering the keynote speech and also open this international webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda will be the recitation of dua. We would like to request Dr. Ahmad Muradi, M.Pd, to lead us in prayer.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Al-Fatihah. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan katsiran tayyiban mubarakan fihi ala kulli hal. حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح لنا أبواب العلم وزينا بالأخلاق الحسنة والحلم اللهم يا محول الحال والأحوال حول حالنا وجامعاتنا إلى أحسن حال يا كبير يا متعال اللهم انقلنا والمسلمين من الشقاوة إلى السعادة ومن النار إلى الجنة ومن العذاب إلى الرحمة ومن الذنوب إلى المغفرة ومن الإساءة إلى الإحسان ومن الخوف إلى الأمان ومن الفقر إلى الغنى ومن الذل إلى العز ومن الإهانة إلى الكرامة ومن الضيق إلى الساعة ومن الشر إلى الخير ومن العسر إلى اليسر ومن الإجبار إلى الإقبال ومن السقم إلى الصحة ومن السخط إلى الرضا ومن الغفلة إلى الإبادة ومن الفترة إلى الاجتهاد ومن الخذلان إلى التوفيق ومن البدعة إلى السنة ومن الجور إلى الأرض ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة أما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Distinguished guests and participants, it is the time we have been waiting for, the presentation from our prominent speaker. Before the presentation begins, allow me to welcome Ibu Siti Muflichah, Ph.D. as the moderator. She is an English lecturer at UIN Antasari Banjarmasin, and she will lead us through the discussion. Please welcome Ibu Siti Muflichah, Ph.D.
Thank you very much for the MC. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the international webinar, I would like to request you to keep mute your microphone. Thank you. The Honorable Master and Madam Speaker, distinguished guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this prestigious international webinar about youth and spiritual value under the light of Al-Quran. Lesson from Nursi's work. This international webinar is held by Antasari Banjarmasin and Yayasan Semesta Jakarta and Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. In this occasion, we shall have outstanding presentation from Indonesia and Turkey, whom I believe shall enrich our insight and knowledge regarding the theme today. Dear participants, let's open this international webinar by saying Basmalah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before the presentation begins, I will inform this afternoon agenda. The first is session about presentation, and each presenter will get around 15 minutes to present the paper. And the second session is question and answer, and participants might write their question on chat box. Today we have two presenters in this our webinar, international webinar. Please allow me to introduce the speakers. Our first speaker is Professor Ismail Latif. He graduated from İzmir Theology and Religious Studies and started his MA at Philosophy and Religious Studies while teaching at various schools. He was awarded bursary for Ph.D. at University of Wales, Lampeter School of Philosophy, Classic Theology and Religious Studies. He researched on epistemology and ontology in philosophy of logic and concentrates problem and relation of Islamic philosophy. Demonstration or kias or reasoning is also follow-up for discussion or language, truth, and reality within classical and current problems on knowledge. You can contact him on his email, ilh@istanbul.edu.tr. Our second speaker is Dr. Osman Yapar. He is from Dhofar University of Oman. He works at Department of English Language and Literature, Dhofar University, Oman. He is specialist from the field of English language and teaching. During his career, he studied and worked in Germany, UK, Turkey, and Oman with different groups of students and young people. He has also experience as trainer in youth work and as project manager under European Union programs. He is interested in integration of moral values into mainstream education. He is currently involved in research on effective online teaching and learning practice as well as moral value education for pre-service teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the first speaker, Professor Ismail Latif from University of Istanbul. Your presentation is about 15 minutes. Thank you. Professor Ismail Latif, are you there? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the first speaker. Sorry.
Selamünaleyküm.
Waalaikumsalam.
Sorry, just last second there's a cutoff from the internet. Sorry about that.
Sure, no worries.
Selamünaleyküm. I didn't hear the last minute.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay,
Welcome, Prof.
start?
Ismail Latif. Yes, time is yours.
Thank you very much. Selamünaleyküm.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamet datang. Inshallah, I will be talking about the clear dilemma of human being as being in young or being in eternity. So will you be allowing me to share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. Can you see that now?
Yes. It's clear.
My screen is on now?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum once again. What I would like to talk today actually the eternal dilemma all of ours are experiencing about being in present or being in eternity. The point is here to try to get the pearls of the Quran, use them in our mental experiences. Today, when we talk about the youth, actually, we don't just only mean the bodily being in youth. Actually, as Quran shows us, bodily youth is not only the main point. I will be trying to emphasize that our mental structures, our all being in present should be kind of utilized to turn our experience in eternity. From this point of view, actually, when we look at the Quranic frame, our souls and spirits are not only limited in our bodily form in this world. and in our spirit, in soul, is actually there before we are born, and it will be there even after we certain space and time. The space and time has different conceptions in Quran, like dehir, like asr, like there are many other concepts which are developed throughout Islamic thought. And like the word of Sermedi, or the word of this presence, when we are born in this world, we kind of have our senses to calculate our presence as if it is the only time we have. But the fact that we have to be here to recognize what is our conception of time in our have different dimensions to have this set up. Primarily, we have our beliefs, we have our values, and we have our desires to recognize those beings. And Quran Hakim, with its wisdom, emphasized that actually we are here to recognize those values, those interaction with the desires. So when we say actually beliefs, as a young person, we have to recognize what they really means in that point of view. In the early age, Muslim scholars count that maybe we start that recognition in the tomb of our mothers. We try to recognize why we are in this world and how we are in this world and what is the meaning of our beingness in this world. So what I would like to do that actually I want to establish this own mentality of being young as pursuing our argumentation in this world. So in the early ages, at the age of 0 to 2 years old, we try to kind of understand the world with our senses, with our touching, smelling, seeing. But these are the very basic senses which kind of express our world to us, what kind of world we are sent into. And then after the 2 years old, until the 4 years old, 6 years old, it's called the age of tamyiz. We kind of try to make meaning out of this world. So when we make the meaning of this world, we try to understand as a human being the certain basic questions and make the sense of this world. So Quranic perception of this world, almost everything is prepared for human being to recognize its beingness on the face of the earth. So after the being kind of 12 years old, 13 years old, depending on the region and the kind of the geography, human being then is called young in this world. But young is not only related to age. Being young is actually having the mental structure of recognizing this world. But in this youth time, the mentality kind of developed. And in our youth, what we see, people's recognition of this world depending on argumentations. We question, we ask questions about the meaning of this world, why I am here, and who is the kind of the character behind this existence. So human being have this existential dilemma. And the main dilemma, am I, as a person, owner of myself? Am I the thing who has the control over myself? So this existential dilemma is there, and the question continues whether may I ignore this dilemma, or this dilemma kind of pushing me to decide what is the meaning, what is those questions are related to my life. So over the structure of the Quran, those questions are developed, and those questions are sophisticated on the meaning and on the aim of my life. So all we may remember in the early age of our lives, we face those questions to find the right answers for them. So we developed the questioning on the certain structures. So when we look at the belief assertions, and our questions are related those beliefs, and our response are to be taken from the values, and they are always related to our desires, not only basic desires, but also to face the pleasures and the pains. So we have to make the meaning out of them. So if you allow me to kind of emphasize here, our mental structures and preferences pushing us to find the solution on those structure. So in here we have the face of our truth values. As you all know, there are various truth values conceptions we are taught by our mental structures. What is true, what is truth, what is goodness, what is beauty. So when we talk about the truth, it is the logical expansion of our mentality. We have to find what is the reality, what is the ultimate reality of this existence, of our beingness. So when we look at the ethical dimension of it, we want to kind of distinctly understand what is good, what is bad. So we have to understand, and we have to understand aesthetically what is beautiful, what is ugly. So in this kind of journey, always shows us to find out strong and weak argumentations on that. So we have to find out what shows us strong or weak judgment, what kind of judgments we are facing, what kind of feelings we are having, what kind of desires. So in our mental processes, we have to kind of distinctly understand what is the strong and weak argumentations about them. So in this point, we in the mental processes form either convincing arguments or refuting argumentations. So in this sense, the mentality of youth is always there in our internal judgments, in internal judgments, in internal feelings, and internal recognition of the desires. So we have to decide to become, or to judge, or have the feelings and distinguish desires on this remainder of the argumentations, which is called typically, it is also important for Risale-i Nur to evaluate that, to have the tezekkür mentality, to kind of remember those points in our life, and to make use of mental kind of processes to understand about tefekkür, how I can relate and place them in a proper way. When we talk about the te'emmül as well, I have to ponder over that. And in the time of youth, and it is also important to get kind of explaining the Quranic mentality, explaining to this frame, it is very important to use the metaphors. And those metaphors, Quran is always using that. Understand those judgments as kind of trainer or guide or a teacher, as a door, as a key to explain those meanings strongly versus against the weak argumentation, weak judgment, weak feelings, or weak desires which may kind of harm our existence. So if I go little more, seems to be our lifetime experience. But the first thing, in early times of our lives, during the youth, these kind of conflicts, or this kind of facing the realities, facing those questions, seems to be harsher than the other times of issues. We always ground of our beliefs. This is very important, especially in our modern times. And Risale-i keep emphasizing importance of the grounding work of those justifications. So we have to kind of base our argumentation on what is belief, and if it's justified beliefs or the borrowed beliefs. We are not really grounded them, but we borrowed from someone else in the time of youth. And actually we don't kind of so much keen to borrow beliefs, but easy to borrow beliefs from the others, kind of imitate the others. But the real iman, as Quranic frame beliefs, justification of our iman, tasdiqat, what are assertions on a grounding base should be understood, and they have to be granted, and they have to be trusted. And when we trusted through justified belief is the one really one can rely on that. In the mental structures, we always believes to be kind of exercise on the desires. When we say desires, actually not only five senses, pleasures and the pains. Pleasures of the pains, again, have the highest form and the strongest form in the time of youth. But the dilemma here, having this mental desires, all those desires actually has a meaning, has to be turned from something to something else. So the point is here is very clear that the dilemma, the turning this youth, or the turning this desires of knowing or passion of the knowledge should be turned like a seed, as a seed for eternity, being young in my time, but to turn it to eternal youth, eternal being young. That is the dilemma, because whenever we say young, once old, we are young, but we cannot stay in time. The time moves on and the life goes on, and the all being is not remain in certain time and point, which is called an seyyale, kind of flying flying point of the time. So the point is here, the turning that second, which we are only kind of seems to be in time, but we even cannot remain on this time. We have to make the decision whether we turn this seed of time to be in vain and wasted, or turn it into eternity, the eternal time. So we have the options. We have the option, either we waste it or we turn the seed into much prosperous plant, wasting or turning it to eternal plant. In this sense, there's one example of Said Nursi's honey example. Honey, all sweet and nice, but honey may also bring the very heavy stomach ache and may kill you. So honey may be sweet or it may be poison. So our time and our desires, our pleasures, our belief and values may in turn to bring us sweetest experience and the highest forms of being, human being as a young. So if we take it sweet side of turning beliefs, values and desires to eternity, then it becomes sweetest thing. But if we don't use in a proper way, if we not turn it to proper way, not only we waste the time and not only we waste the youth, we also get poison and we have the pain in the second of our presence, and we have the all ugliness of that time, and we lose the all meaning and the purpose of life if we not turn it to eternal side of it, if we not turn it to sweet side of it. From this perspective, actually, action, belief and action is our mental structure. So we decide. As a human being, we are acting things in a very speedy way. So Quranic verses explain that when we kind of faced with our nafs and with the help of the satanic mental kind of whisperings, the mental structure may turn us to act speedily. But Quranic perspective, Risale-i Nur as a treatise keep emphasizing that to turn this belief and to turn this old values, to turn this desires in a thoughtful action. Thoughtful action actually is to emphasize the kind of not having action in an instant and the wasted current response. Instead of having this versus and against this, there's a big emphasis. Keep calm and understand the process and have your response with your delayed, not delayed actually, the processed response. And the processed response is only based on logical frame. Because as a human being, we either use our reason to kind of going up with our beliefs, values as a human being, even to come up to the kind of insan kamil, or we may kind of throw ourselves out of this frame, from the logical frame, and have the suffering out of this. So there are two concepts here, kind of lezzet-i hazıra and lezzet-i ebediye. Either we can choose to have even poisoned honey and to fall into to kind of all wrong desires, forbidden desires, and kind of feeling the lezzet-i hazıra, the current temporal desires, and then
Excuse me, Professor.
they have the suffering on that. But you know, we have to remember that the limits in the meshru'a, limits in the kind of sorry, I think time is.
It is 1 minute
so
left.
I will be kind of okay. I was wrapping up.
It is 1.
The point is actually I'm trying to show here being in our time, not in relation time and space, which is related to our age. Youth can be turned into eternal youth only by considering the mental structures on the grounded belief and turn them to experience of our truth values in our values and the proper way. So that is the kind of mental and logical structures. Once we try to utilize that structure, then eternal happiness will be followed eternal youth. So I like to thank you, and I like to emphasize that the Quranic pearls, as it is emphasized, by the time passing, get younger and younger. Instead of our perception of youth goes away, actually Quranic emphasize that youth comes after, as long as we understand the meanings and aims. I like to thank you all very much, and selamet terikamasa, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ismail Latif, who talked about dilemma of being in present or in eternity. There are dimensions of being such as belief, assertiveness, values, application, desire and pleasure, and also pain. He is also focuses on being youth. It's not about being old or about age, but it's about developmental or mental which is developed. In terms of dilemma, there is always existential dilemma. In everyday life, we also face the values of truth, goodness, and beauty. However, he makes an example in terms of honey. Based on our belief, we can make it sweetest thing rather than make it honey as a poison. Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Ismail. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the second speaker, Dr. Osman Yapar from Dhofar, Oman. Your presentation is about 15 minutes.
Okay, Assalamualaikum everyone. I hope you can show me the flexibility that you showed to the previous presenter, Ismail Hocam. I've been listening to this presentation with interest. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing institutions, the rector, vice rector, and the organizing committee at Antasari State Islamic University. I would also like to thank Brother Hasbishan, who has facilitated this conference between the university and also the organizers in Istanbul Foundation for Science and Culture. As I come from education background. You read my short biography. I'm in mainly English language teaching, but we've been working in moral values education on different projects, and I've been talking about this in different places as well. Currently, I'm based in Oman, in Dhofar University. I've got a final picture at the end of my slide about a beautiful place in Salale in Dhofar. Inshallah, you will enjoy the presentation, and I'll show you one picture from where I'm working at. I'll be sharing my presentation here. Okay. Thank you. All right. The topic of my presentation is basically the principles of moral values education in formal and non-formal context. This is the title. So the topic is like more or less the same. Moral values education has been like in a prominent issue in most of the communities around the world. But recently there were some changes. That's like one of the arguments I have, which I'm going to present. So we would like to start with a verse from the Quran, which tells us like the ultimate level of education. Astagfirullah, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram, alladhi allama bil qalam, allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam. According to this, these verses of the Quran, the greatest teacher that we have is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who teaches us the things that we did not know about. When we came to this world, we did not know anything, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with knowledge and wisdom in the ways that we perform our deeds in this world and prepare us for the next life. With this understanding, what is the aim of this presentation? I'd like to try and increase your awareness. Okay, 15-20 minutes is not enough time, of course, to expand on these topics, but it may be drawing your interest and inviting you to explore more. Brother Hasbishan is working really well in terms of the translation of Risale Nur into Bahasa Indonesia. And inshallah, you can read and benefit a lot from this. Actually, I was impressed with the rector's Mujiburrahman's presentation in such a short time by reading one of the books. He has actually explained a lot of major concepts from Risale Nur. So I would like to invite the teaching staff, the students, and the management of the university to benefit from these works. So why do I want to increase your awareness about the importance of values education? Of course, you are a state university teaching Islamic education, and I am sure you have embedded these moral values education. But how can we integrate this more, and what are the effective ways of doing this? What should be the guiding principles? That is what I'm going to talk about. I'm not suggesting that you are not doing them, but there is always room for improvement. So inshallah, I would like to talk about how we can improve our education system in Muslim countries to benefit more from moral values education. I'll be making references to Bediüzzaman Said Nursi's works because he's a very prominent scholar in Turkey and also internationally. And actually, I find his writings very effective in terms of addressing the current issues, the current problems that we Muslims are experiencing around the world. And also we have a dua here, which is very common in Indonesian tradition. You start with the Quran and also dua. So my dua here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah increase our benefit from these works, and may Allah allow us to provide more effective education to the youth and also our own selves. I've got two questions for reflection. I'd like to start briefly by asking. I'm not expecting an answer from everyone, but at least if some people can answer in the chat box, I will be happy. I'll try to read from the chat box. What do you think is formal education? First question. And what do you think is non-formal education? If I can see some comments. I don't think I can see the chat box. I will ask then the host to read if there are any comments about this. What do you think is formal education? When you hear this word formal education, what comes to your mind? And what do you think is non-formal education? A couple of words would be useful to start thinking about the difference between these two types of education. If there are any comments.
Yeah, there are some comments in the chat box.
Yes, I can't see the chat.
Okay, would you like me to read for you?
Yeah, I just opened it. Sorry, yes. The comments here, Abdurrahman, who's I think from India, says formal education means paid services. Okay, not necessarily. Non-formal means internet or life experiences. Okay. Anissa Riska says formal education like schools. Okay, that's right. And Siti Farahin says non-formal education is something we learn at home. I think that is part of non-formal education. And non-formal education, such as books and internet, says Nur Aziz. Okay, thank you very much for your comments. You touched on certain elements of formal and non-formal education. Very basically, formal education is more organized. It's got certificates. It's got usually buildings, but it can also be provided from internet, such as this conference that we are attending. It's a formal conference. It can be organized in different ways. So what is non-formal education? It is not necessarily organized into a body like an institution, okay? It starts from a very young age, and the first teacher in our life is our mother. And this carries on until the end of our life. That is why sometimes lifelong learning is also considered part of non-formal education. This is a very hot topic now, lifelong learning. But actually in Islamic history, when you study it, it has always been there from the early ages until the end of our days. We have to seek knowledge and increase our knowledge, especially to prepare us for the afterlife. The next question then is, what do you understand from moral values? When we say the word moral values, what comes to your mind? And why do you think this is important? What do you understand from moral values, and why do you think it is important? Okay, good. Nur Aziz says moral values are something that we gain from our experience. Muflichah says it's ethics. There's a question mark there. Just checking maybe. Abdurrahman says moral values means those values which we think to be right, and it's important because it keeps us at peace. Okay, very good. Anything else? Adi says the core of learning. Okay, nice comments here. I'm not going to go into too much of a theoretical debate here because of the time, but basically moral values or values education has gained a lot of importance, prominence in Western education as well. In Islamic education, I think we had this embedded from the very beginning. If you read writings of prominent Muslim scholars, they talk about ta'lim and tarbiyah. So it is not only teaching knowledge to your students, but also educating them in the values. And the sign of receiving an ijazah was not only to pass an exam where you answer some question, but also to show good character. So character development, moral values education was always part of Islamic education as well. With the secularization in the in the recent centuries, in Europe especially, there's more focus on learning of the knowledge and less focus on the character. So a person who has a very bad character, they can have degrees and they can become prominent scholars in knowledge. Unfortunately, that can lead to decadence in the society. It can have very negative outcomes. Yes, Brother Nabi is saying, for example, nuclear power. Yes, these were the greatest scientists in Europe who developed nuclear power projects, and then they used it to destroy lives. Okay, Feriadin says many youth lose their aims following current situation, game addictions and stuff like that. Okay, how we build our personal mastery and developmental health to lead ourselves from this situation. Okay, moral values education does not only address like certain social ills all the time. We need to understand these are overarching principles which can guide a person's life. But there are sometimes like, mental, psychological problems that people experience, and they like, can have like addiction or something. I was checking the university's website. For example, you have violence against women as a seminar, a webinar, I think, happening between you and Malaysia. And actually violence against women in Islam is like strictly forbidden, but culturally this is like very common, especially in the Middle East, in like many Muslim countries, as well as many other countries in the world. In Africa, for example, in Asia, in non-Muslim countries, you see violence a lot as well. Although the moral teaching might prohibit certain things, it does not always become effective, and we are going to actually talk about the reasons briefly in our presentation. Now, the first thing I would like to talk about is the pressing need to learn the truths of the Quran, as you can see in the title. This is actually my problem statement as well as the solution. Bediüzzaman explains in some of his works that the current problem which started with the modernity is the outcomes of education. So before modernity, education made a person a better person, and it would lead to like more religious, more moral people overall, generally. Okay, maybe because of the focus on the moral values education. Unfortunately, after modernity, this changed and people started studying things, learning a lot, but it did not lead to an increased faith. It did not lead to an increased morality. Actually, many people become like atheist, agnostic, or started overriding their moral values and principles in their societies because of education and learning. And this is a very strange phenomenon that Bediüzzaman explains in his social analysis. This is actually from the 15th Ray. He mentions this or similar messages in different parts of Risale-i Nur as well. And he's basically saying in former times, compared with the present time, there was very little absolute disbelief, which is kufr, yes, or misguidance, which is dalala, arising from science, or disbelief arising from perverse obstinacy. So in the former times, we didn't have much disbelief originating from science and learning. The instruction of Islamic scholars of those times and their arguments were therefore sufficient, quickly dispelling any unbelief arising from doubt. So you would go to a scholar, ask them some questions, and that will be sufficient for a person to, have sufficient level of belief. Belief in Allah was general, and they could persuade most people to give up their misguidance. Like brother, what's his name? The last question you were asking, actually. Abdurrahman, actually. Sorry, not Abdurrahman. Feryadin was asking about this. Why do Muslims, despite all these righteous teachings, go and get addicted to this and that and lots of problems? The rector also touched on this. Although Muslims have to refrain from some obvious sins, we don't always follow this. We sometimes break our moral code. Why is this happening? This is more common in the recent times than the former times. But now, so the change in this situation, there are 100 absolute disbelievers in one small town instead of perhaps one in a whole country. Those who lose their way due to science and learning and obstinately oppose the truths of belief have increased 100-fold, 100 times in relation to former times. This is a very interesting observation, which I think is also right. And with pride like that of the Pharaoh and their terrible misguidance, these obdurate deniers oppose the truths of belief. So people start questioning the tenets of faith even within the Muslim communities. I'm not even talking about the Christian world or Jews and other faith groups. Even among the Muslims now, there are a lot of people questioning the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or certain names even like, questioning like the prophetic tradition, the Sunnah, the Hadith. We are like, facing a lot of challenges from learned people, from people of science, scholarship, and learning, not from like, just ignorant people. So what is the solution that he is suggesting? A sacred truth is therefore much needed that will completely destroy the basis of their disbelief in this world, like an atom bomb, and will halt their aggression and bring some of them to believe. So this atom bomb actually is not a destructive one, it's a constructive one. So he is saying that we should like spread these works to improve, to construct the beliefs of these people, the common like people that we see around the world who are going through a very secular education system. I'm going to like quickly summarize. I'll try to quickly summarize some of the guidelines that I have found, which are prominent in modern moral values education. The first one is tafakkur. Professor Ismail Hacınebioğlu, he also touched on this like slightly. Tafakkur is a very important principle in the majority of Risale-i Nur, and it needs like an activation of our aql, which is like the main faculty distinguishing us from animals. Animals also love their like children, their youth. There are like other things that we are similar with the animals, but what makes us like essentially different is our aql, and we have to use it to understand the higher truths of this universe. Okay, I would like to give you a very quick example here. The rector in his speech also talked about some young people coming to visit Bediüzzaman, and in one of these like occasions, Bediüzzaman taught these students that every science with its own individual tongue is making known the glorious creator of the universe. So if the teachers do not speak about Allah, listen to these sciences and you will attain belief, a high level of belief, he was saying. Okay, there are a lot of questions, but I can't take questions now. So if you can make a note of your questions, I will inshallah take them maybe after we close the presentation. Okay. So reflection was a key topic in his lessons, in his teachings to the young people, and he did not tell them to drop school. He did not tell them to reject the modern sciences. He was saying actually this knowledge can lead to ma'rifatullah through logical comparison. There's more to this now, but we don't really have time to read all of this. And second principle, it is not only to concentrate on the mind, but also a union or a merger of the mind and the heart. And Bediüzzaman uses a very interesting analogy, which I really like. He uses the analogy of the eye, okay? He is talking about the white and the black part of the eye. The black, the inner part is the pupil of the eye, which is black, and the most of the eye is white. If one is absent, a person will be blind. So he's saying, using this analogy, he's saying that if the light of thought, our aql, is not illuminated with the light of the heart and blended with it, it is darkness and breeds tyranny, zulm. Yes? If the white of the eye, which resembles day, is not together with the black pupil, which resembles the night, the eye will not be a light eye, it will not be seeing, which is blind, isn't it? Similarly, the black core of the heart, if it's not present in the white thought, it lacks insight. So it's talking about a marriage, a union, a merger between the mind and the heart. So you cannot just teach people how to do certain things in terms of science. You also have to teach them the guiding principles, which are the moral values, and you have to work on this. Otherwise, it will be providing tools for a tyrant to spread their tyranny, which is unfortunately very common in our day and age. The third principle I would like to touch on is the right intention. Intention is very significant, and Bediüzzaman resembles this to an elixir. elixir actually in maybe Arabic language, elixir in English language was in alchemy. And they were trying to invent like a substance which can turn valueless metals into gold, soil into gold, or like valueless metal into gold. So Bediüzzaman says that intention is like an elixir which can change your ordinary daily activities into worship. It can change like normal knowledge into ma'rifatullah. So your knowledge about this world can help you understand and appreciate the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his other attributes which can lead to ma'rifatullah. But the condition is having the right intention. This right intention, yes, I know time. I'm finishing.
Thank you.
This is the third one. Next is the fourth one. Inshallah, I will finish that. The intention is not only for the teachers. Okay, I'm teaching. My intention should be sincere, but it's also for the learners. So we cannot teach our learners, teach our students to be sincere and keep us like away from this sincerity. It has to be on both sides. So we have to be humble. Remember that knowledge is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not our own property. Allah has given us this knowledge and we should try to spread it in a useful way. The final principle I would like to touch on is about our teaching methodology. Unfortunately, in the Muslim world, a lot of the institutions have centuries-old teaching methods. This can be an advantage, but at the same time, disadvantage. We need to understand that the old teaching methods are not part of Islam. Okay, the religion, Islam, the faith, the belief is not like to be associated with like old teaching methods. We need to understand modern teaching methods can be very effective in terms of understanding and applying knowledge. This especially applies to like discussions, giving like autonomy to our learners, having more confidence in our youth to discover like facts, sciences, knowledge for themselves, and empowering them in this journey, which may not always be applied in a lot of the Islamic institutions around the world. Okay, I've got like some more like reference here, but we have run out of time. And as promised, this is the picture from where I'm working, from Salale, Oman, a very nice view of the ocean. The only neighbor across is the South Pole. Actually, from here to there, it is empty. I would like to thank you very much for welcoming me in this conference, and I'm very happy to have met our Indonesian brothers and sisters again after 2 years, probably in 1.5 2 years in our time there. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osman Yapar. He has said about principle of moral value education in formal and non-formal education. First, he acknowledged the work of Said Nursi, and then discussing formal and non-formal education, followed by moral value definition is like the word ta'lim and tarbiyah. It is not only to educate, but also to build good character, as it is part of Islamic education. Also, Dr. Osman talked about the need to learn the truth of the Quran, and then it can be reflected by reflection or tafakkur as a case skill, the need of union of the mind and the heart, and lastly, the right intention. Thank you very much for all presenters for their informative and interesting talk. Very well, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to question and answer session. I saw on the host, on the screen, there was Marian who raised hand. Marian, do you want to say or tell your question? Okay, Marian's not joining again. So would you like to write your question in the box chat so I can read what are your questions? And especially because the time is limited, we can have 3 questions. The first is for the rector, if you like to ask about the keynote speech, and then the second one for Professor Ismail, and one is for Dr. Osman. There was a message in the chat box about how do you counter brainwashing? Because many things around us are fake, because youth Muslim faces in the world. If we just rely on gaining knowledge from webinar, but our environment growth is still unhealthy, from Feriadin. Unfortunately, he or she didn't state to whom it's the question. So the speaker might comments on Feriadin's question. Thank you. Okay. There was a question from Anissa as well. As already explained by Professor Dr. Ismail Latif, a parable of honey in life. Honey can be something very sweet, or maybe it can be also poison. Nowadays, most of the younger generation are only ready to accept the sweet of honey, including myself. So she acknowledged herself. If they receive the poison of honey, they will fall. And it is not uncommon for some to experience depression, and the worst is to commit suicide. How we should act as the younger generation when we are receiving the poisonous honey in life? Very good question, I think. Anissa, to whom speaker you state your question? Oh, Professor Ismail, okay. Yeah, Professor Ismail, would you like to answer this question? I think we got disconnect. Okay, for Osman, yeah, Professor Osman, Dr. Osman, when we talk about universal brotherhood in Islam, doesn't that mean the brotherhood between Muslim and non-Muslim? But where it's the way we see our own Muslim brother fighting in the name of Sunnis and Shias in the Middle East. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, it's very clear.
Okay, thank you very much for this question, Brother Abdurrahman. Now, actually my topic is talking about moral values education, and I was touching on the general principles, and these can be applied in many situations when we are teaching moral values. But what you're asking here is actually like a conflict situation. It is a very important moral value, and just like I think last week we published an article about this. Inshallah, you will be able to see this. If you are interested, contact me and I can send you the link as well. So what we are basically discussing is that there are many different forms of violence in a conflict situation. It does not always have to be like a war when people are fighting and killing each other. It can be violence in the family, like the university is addressing through a webinar, especially like women are oppressed in those kind of violent situations. Children can be oppressed in a family violence situation. It can be violence in education. For example, I can try to oppress my students, not in a physical sense, but in an ideological sense. And Bediüzzaman actually talks about this great enemy called ta'assub. So we are sometimes so obstinate about our own opinion that we can use whatever means to oppress the other side. And unfortunately, this is becoming a very common problem around the world, not only in Muslim countries, especially in the West or non-Muslim countries. We can see this form of oppression. Yes, in India, you don't have conflict between Sunni and Shia, but what we can see, there are a lot of laws now making the lives of Muslims very difficult. Unfortunately, even now they are starting banning marriages, weddings between Muslim men and non-Muslim women, or even who have converted. There's a law about this now in India, which shows us the gravity, the severity of the situation. What I'm trying to say, we need to understand the moral values of conflict. So when you are in disagreement with another person, this can be your brother or sister, this can be your family members, this can be your teacher, your student, this can be some of the politicians in your country, this can be the neighboring country. internationally. So in these kind of situations, what is the method we should follow? Actually, Quran addresses this a lot, and I'm going to suggest you search online for Sincerity and Brotherhood, because it's like combined in one book. Sincerity and Brotherhood by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi is a very good work touching on the moral values of conflict, especially with specific lessons from the Quran. So my suggestion would be to do some further reading about this. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osman. We have one more question from my student. She asked about the metaphor of honey. It is directed to Professor Ismail. Would you like to answer, please? Professor Ismail. Okay, there is a question from Nur Aziza. It is for Professor Mujiburrahman. The youth will certainly pass, and if we cannot control, it will be misery and suffering first. Regarding Quran and Said Nursi's work, is there any principle that we can remember or use in the youth life so you can pass this fast strongly or safely? Thank you, Nur Aziza. Prof.
Okay, thank you
Mujiburrahman.
for the question. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, thanks for the questions. I think Said Nursi already explained extensively in his book that youth should control him or herself, especially the carnal soul, the evils of the carnal souls, nafs, in order to be able to pass the youth or the young age in doing good things rather than bad things. And he explained that the young age ranging only from 5 to 10 years, but our life normally much longer than 5 or 10 years. So if you can pass these 5 or 10 years safely by controlling yourself, by obedience to God, and then following the Sharia, then you will be happy in the future. Not only in the future of this life, but also in the hereafter. Because happiness depends mostly on our character and our faith rather than our bodily pleasures or wealth or popularity and power. So I think this is a very old idea, but it is a perennial wisdom for everybody to follow. I think that is my answer.
Thank you very much, Professor Mujiburrahman, for your answer. There is still one question for Professor Ismail. If you could answer, we will prepare the time, like the time is limit. Professor Ismail? Okay, I think she got disconnected. So I just want to finish this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the international webinar on youth and spiritual value under the light of the Al-Quran, lesson from Said Nursi's work. We would like to say thanks again for all speakers for their informative and interesting talk, and to audience for your active participation. Hopefully the international webinar will be beneficial for everybody. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next webinar. Okay, this is the end of the presentation session. To close this session, let's say Hamdalah. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I will return the next stage to MC Febrina Amandita. Thank you.
Thank you all the speakers for the enlightening materials, and we thank Ibu Siti Muflichah for moderating the forum today and engaging us in a very exciting discussion. To make this even more memorable, it is my honor to invite everyone to join us in photo session. Would you please turn on your video so that we can capture the moment? Hadirin sekalian, dimohon agar seluruhnya menyalakan videonya, agar sesi foto bersama bisa kita laksanakan. Kepada panitia, dipersilakan untuk mengambil sesi foto bersama. Okay, thank you Bapak dan Ibu. Finally, I'm Febrina Amandita on behalf of the committee, wishing you all a wonderful Tuesday. We will see you in the next event. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
To all the participants, for the link for certificate is shared in Zoom chat. You can fill the form now, and then download link will be come up. Kepada seluruh partisipan, untuk link sertifikat dibagikan di Zoom chat, kalian bisa isi formnya sekarang, dan nanti akan muncul link downloadnya. Terima kasih.
Alhamdulillah, sudah selesai. Terima kasih Pak Mujiburrahman.
Terima kasih Pak Hasbi.
Ya, sama-sama Pak Hasbi. Hope to see you someday. Ya, inshallah. Dr. Usman, how are you? Hope to see you.
Inshallah, inshallah. We have very good impressions of Indonesia. If there's an opportunity, we'd like to come and visit you, inshallah.
Yeah, we hope so. And also, Dr. Said Yusi, are you there?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Inshallah, see you again.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, sanaltaqi.
İnşallah.
Yeah.
İnşallah.
Bir şey söyleyecekseniz tercüme edeyim Said abi.
Hayır, Allah razı olsun, güzel oldu, dinledim. Hakikaten istifadeli oldu. Bu işte başında da söylediğim gibi bu hastalık inşallah dünyanın üstünden kalktıktan sonra bu konularda bir araya gelelim. Neler yapabiliriz, ortak çalışmalar neler yürütebiliriz, onları değerlendirelim. Doktora, master programlarına biz de destek olabiliriz. En azından kaynaklar konusunda, bu alanda Nursi eserleri konusunda ve insanlığın yaşadığı krizlere Risale-i Nur'dan çözümler konusunda çok önemli doktora, master konuları olabilir. Biz de o konularda yani tez hazırlayacak öğrencilere de yardımcı oluruz. İstanbul'dan İngilizce, Arapça kaynaklar temin ederiz. Benzeri faaliyetler inşallah birlikte yürütürüz.
İnşallah. Rector sudah paham? beliau menyampaikan bahwa alhamdulillah acaranya berjalan dengan lancar. Dia juga sendiri dapat manfaat dari presentasi itu. Kalau